So what's happening, people? Welcome back to the Intermat Wrestling Podcast, and we're the four horsemen of the Intermat Wrestling Podcast because we know everything and you don't. Just kidding. But we're gonna dig into some fun stuff. We're gonna dig into Bassett's decision, which came less than an hour ago. We're gonna talk a little bit about the Hodge because we should. It's not so open and shut as people would probably want to think that it is. We'll talk obviously Iowa Penn State and what went on at 184, the things that are coming up in our conferences next week, and in the middle we'll sandwich in something fun where we talk about wrestling shoes, and we'll do kind of a debate of wrestling shoes of whether or not they were better back in the day or are they better now, and kind of talk about that. But let's start. Bassett's decision comes out. He's going to Iowa. He will be the next Hawkeye in the mix, and with him being a Young Guns guy, I guess I shouldn't be too surprised. Or at least like growing up a Young Guns guy, I guess. I think the video that he posted, he's wearing the Young Guns t-shirt, and when he posted it, I mean, I feel like he kind of alluded to it in that post of saying my first video was the night Spencer Lee committed to Iowa, right? Like there was some foreshadowing that in there. Um, I for one am happy that the decision came and that the courting is over. Not because it's anything against Bo Bassett. I just feel like it was going on for a very long time. That's all. Something that you were like invested in and you wanted to see the transparency of recruiting and what was going on and what was being said. And obviously those conversations are kept in confidence between him and the coaches and everything else. But as we said before, like more transparency, like tell us a little bit more about what's going on, right? And maybe that was in his newsletters, and I'm not subscribed to Bo Bassett's newsletters. But doing interviews and stuff like that would have been really cool to hear him say, like, these are the things that I'm weighing, right? These are the things where it's not as scripted as an edited newsletter, right? Um, but it's going to be Iowa, and I'm not really that surprised. I think we probably narrowed it down to what his top three would be when everything started to come out. I feel like it was obviously between, he gave us the top four, but I think that the schools, I mean, I think Virginia Tech probably came in fourth. Um, Honestly, I loved seeing that there was an ACC team that was still in the running very late in the process, because it just showed that it's not all Big Ten, right? And obviously, you had the Big Ten, the biggest in the Big Ten in there with Penn State and Iowa, and he's going off to the Big Ten. But you also had Oklahoma State and the new regime in there too, which I, for one, thought would probably been a really good fit for him. I don't know Bo as much as anyone else does, but with David Taylor being there and obviously Gilman being there, you're like, man, that would be a really good fit. And there's guys in that room that I think he would fit along with, right? And especially with his style, felt like he's more of an attacking style guy. And not to say that Iowa guys aren't, but the guys in Oklahoma State's room are a little bit. I mean, David Taylor is known more for attacking like a madman, more so than the guys in Iowa's room, right? Outside of Spencer Lee. But what do you guys think of him heading off to Iowa?
I mean,
Can't
it's
say I'm super
exciting.
surprised.
Yeah, I mean, like it is what it is. He's going to Iowa. It's a great program, history program. Obviously, I mean, the anybody who's listening to this has seen all the chatter about the NIL stuff that's out there, right? So it'd
Yes.
be disingenuous to not bring that up. And independent of whatever the finances are, right? I'm not gonna, judge anybody based on that, but I will say that independent of the circumstances, the numbers getting thrown around are a lot higher than I would ever guess. So more power to all the kids out there, man. Keep going to these clubs and getting better and working hard. And not everybody gets to be that guy, but be somebody that's getting paid to go out there and compete and do what's really hard to do, So um but independent of the money and the finance piece of it, like again, that's life changing money. Good for him, if assuming those are correct. Um, but when you think Iowa wrestling, right? Like his style reminds me a lot of kind of the Brent Metcalf in your face, break you sort of style. Um, and so I'm happy to see that sort of attacking style and that sort of physical style and because when you watch him, like there's not this barrage of crazy wild technique, and I'm not trying to take anything away. The guy is obviously a very technical wrestler, but when I
Mhm.
watch him, what's almost more impressive is his pace, his physicality, his willingness to just stick his face in there and make it suck for both him and his opponent.
Yeah, he's
But
extremely fundamental with everything that he does.
yeah, and he knows when the sucky part's going to stop. You know what I mean? Like the opponent doesn't; they just fall apart. So, anyway, I think those pieces of it mix. Um, I'm happy for Iowa and Iowa fans to be able to have that. I mean, it's been tough for everybody over the last couple years, and just getting our butts kicked. I say R is in like the not Penn State community, because they've just been beating everybody. Um, so I'm sure that's a nice thing to have, and you feel pretty good about what the future kind of looks like, especially coming off of last weekend's butt kicking. So it's a nice win to have here. Good timing.
Yeah. Robbie Austin, anything?
Go ahead, Robbie.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. First off, like you said, huge kudos to Coach Roby and company for being in the running for this top recruit to the very end. I was there when Bo was there to visit and kind of saw what they had planned for him and the things they had in place. And that's something and Willie alluded to this morning in his in his podcast. They do an amazing job with recruiting, and you see the results of that. You see, um, the classes that they're getting, the people they're bringing into Blacksburg, and it speaks volumes to the culture they've created and the success they've had, that they're in the running for the top recruit that we've seen in many years.
Mhm.
Um, that being said, they were pretty open during the process of, if this is where he wants to be, it's because he wants to be part of this program. He wants to be the face. He wants to be part of this culture and, take this program to the next step. Ultimately, it wasn't his decision. It wasn't his choice to go there, and that's is what it is for them. But I was a fine fit for him. I think I kind of had to narrow down to either Iowa or Oklahoma State, and wouldn't have been surprised by either. Uh, I think it would be foolish to say that NIL didn't play a role in any of this.
Mhm.
From my understanding, the numbers aren't super comparable, um, but I don't have the exact figures in front of me, but from what I've been told, it's an astonishing sum of money.
The one thing I will push back on with the money piece is assuming the rumors are correct. It's not like he's going to a bad program,
No.
you
No,
know, like he gets both wins. So there's both
Yeah.
of those things there.
I feel like, and it's funny, right? Because I did watch the clip where he's like, I'm not a quarterback. This isn't football. Like, hopefully we do get there someday. In football, and something that I pay very close attention to, with all the NIL stuff that goes on. I'm reading stuff about the House case. I literally have a podcast coming out tomorrow about the House versus NCAA case and how the DOJ and the Department of Education has stepped in on that. Um, so that will literally be out tomorrow morning. But like I said, I'm reading a lot of different literature on these subjects. And in football, NIL is very different. Football money is long money, deep pocket type money. But in wrestling, it's obviously not. But like, I feel like our sport tries to stay as traditional as possible, in certain aspects, right? Like we kind of have to, because we don't have those huge mega donors that are able to just like throw money around like crazy,
Some
outside
programs
of the
do.
things that Paycom and Oklahoma State are doing, right? But it is different, right? It's not Carson Beck transferring to Miami for $8 million to be their quarterback for 1 year, right? It's not Quinn Ewers getting potential $8 million offers as well to stay in college football. That's not happening in wrestling. But I feel like, and Robbie, you just said this, and I think you were kind of perfect when you said it, was if he comes here, it's because he wants to be part of this program, not because of the money that's being thrown at him. And I feel like with listening to Kale and listening to David Taylor, even when he was in his opening speech of, we're going to spend our money where it counts with the RTC. We want to build the RTC because ultimately that will bring even more culture into the building. And that's when guys are going to want to be here. We're not going to be throwing crazy money around at recruits. And I'm sure that they were in the running as well with NIL and things like that because it is a factor, especially somebody who is as publicized and as, public, I guess I should say, as Bo Bassett is. But I also feel like wrestling is staying as traditional as possible in that realm of, yes, we're going to try and spend money, but we have culture here where it needs to be a culture fit. And we're not just going to say, you're the best guy that's out there. So we're going to go fetch the money wherever we possibly can, and that is one thing that, I love seeing, even if it is kind of lip service or coach speak of, we're going to maintain our culture and our philosophy and our plan. And, and Kale saying the proof is there when it comes to who we recruit and how well we do. Um, so that was one thing that, Robbie, when you said, if he comes here, it's because of the culture. It's not because our checkbook was wide open and we hand them a blank check, which I think in wrestling, as opposed to football, is something that I love seeing as it stays as traditional. Not to say that if we did have those deep pockets in wrestling that it wouldn't be happening, right? I think it's more a case of not being an option in certain cases, but we also do have the coaches that are talking about culture and things like that instead of, now I have to re-recruit my own guys year after year and the money and this and that we see in basketball even and even in football. Austin, what are your thoughts on the latest Pennsylvania to Iowa train that continues to continue?
Yeah, I mean, just yeah, like we all said before, it was one of three schools, right? And as a fan, part of me, without having any dog in the fight, would have loved to see an Oklahoma State commit. Just because with David Taylor coming in, huge hire as a head coach. Bo Bassett would have been a huge get as a recruit, just to help bring that program up to the next level and challenge Penn State. I think we talked about it last week. Just Penn State winning all the time, for lack of a better word, it gets boring. It's like, all right, Penn State, they're this good. They're going to break their own record. They're the best team ever. And we say that every year, right? And I think Oklahoma State had an opportunity there if they would have got Bassett just to, challenge them. And it's a good storyline too. David Taylor, former Penn State wrestler, challenging potentially the greatest coach of all time, best NCAA wrestler of all time in Kale. I think that just the story writes themselves for that. But, just looking at for what it is, Iowa just, just to be honest, they need a bit of a revamp. It's especially after this weekend's butt whooping that they took from Penn State. I think Robbie or Kevin mentioned it, and I think they kind of needed that to help revamp their program and have a new face and bring that program back to what it used to be in Iowa. Huge traditional powerhouse, huge historic program, and I think Bo is the guy that can potentially turn that around and make this a three-team race moving forward. Trying to two behind Penn State, catching them.
Yeah, I agree with
I
that.
think you
One
also
other
have to take
thing,
into account the other giant recruit that Oklahoma State just picked up.
yeah,
The top recruit outside of
Yeah.
McCourt and Deshaun
Deshaun
Ross,
Ross,
and
yeah,
that's a huge pickup.
Hmm.
And
straight out of
I don't want
Iowa.
that. I don't want that to get lost in the shuffle of all the media blitz that this is going to get, because that's a huge pickup
Hmm.
for Taylor, and that was, I think, one of his biggest targets. I think what's kind of stood out to me and hearing some of the chatter and like reading some of the forum posts is people thinking that it's going to be a program changing addition. Um, and I think it could have been had he gone to a non-traditional powerhouse. I don't foresee him being, a program changer at Iowa. I'm sure he's going to be fantastic. Very likely could win multiple NCAA titles, but he's not going to change the trajectory of that program like he could have at, say, Virginia Tech or Rutgers, a program that doesn't have that long storied history of success. So I think that's just an interesting thing to kind of take into account with it.
Kevin, you were going to say something?
I was gonna bring up the Deshaun Ross thing too. Just how, I mean, literally like right on the heels of that, and that was a pretty big loss for Iowa to have that getting taken right out of their state there. So once again, good timing for Bo to jump in and change the future of this beleaguered program.
Yeah, and I
Maybe they'll get
wonder
some windows
if
in their room now.
yeah, I wonder if the Ross commitment and I said we didn't really want to rest the hat on NIL, but I wonder if the Ross commitment changed the facts and figures
Availability.
to Bassett, right? Like, was that something that was like, okay, this one's out the door, we need to pivot, and because we heard a lot of things in the off season with the transfers where there were transfers that were looking to make some deals and how this person was supposed to go to Iowa and that person and then this person didn't pan out, so now the money is open for that. Like there were a lot of things that were being said and kind of thrown around in the off season. So I wonder if
We
that
have
had,
some D1 coaches who are still making salty posts on Twitter about it, but that's,
yeah, exactly, right. So like there were a lot of things that um have been said. I mean, Lee Pritz put it right out there, and brands can't coach that with that tweet. Um, and it left it up, right, and still there. So like people are still pretty upset about those things. You know what I mean? Like just put it out there. So yeah, but like and like I said, I do not want to say, oh, he, went to the highest bidder or they're buying a team or stuff like that. No, like, because even without that, right? Like Spencer Lee went to Iowa without the money, right? There's a number of guys that have gone to Iowa without the money factor. He is going to a traditional power, at least the money that we're seeing now, right? Like there have been a number of high powered guys that have worn that black and yellow for a very long time and will rep that forever.
A lot
So,
of Pennsylvania guys too.
a lot of Pennsylvania guys.
You're
So
welcome,
it's
Iowa.
not completely outside the realm of that at all. I'm just saying with the way that the current recruiting landscape looks, when one recruit makes a decision to go elsewhere, does it kind of free up a chunk of money to invest somewhere else, right? Like you got to look at these things like business nowadays, and that's a business type move. And
yeah.
I feel like now everything pivots to Jack's Forest, and what is Jack's Forest going to do?
And
Where's
say,
he
how
going
hard is
to?
Oklahoma State going after a guy like that now?
I mean,
Two of the top
they
three in
they
that
used to
class.
go after him really hard. I mean, go back and watch some of those Jack's Forest videos and look at the coaches that were in his corner, right? Like, look at the people that were around him when he was, at certain places. And this was past regime, right? This wasn't the current. Um, but you can go back and look at those Jack's Forest videos, and you see who is around, and you see who's trying to be in his ear and be close and foster relationships and stuff. So um he had a visit just like Bo did to Oklahoma State. I'm sure the decision will be coming pretty soon. A lot of
But
people
how
wanted to,
how are we gonna know about it if it's not like he's not posting about it?
I
It's going to
mean,
be, we're just going to find out one
we're just
day.
gonna find out. I mean,
It's on
it could potentially
Smoke
be leaked.
signals.
You never know. You know how people
Well,
love to spoil everybody's commitments and stuff. But like, no, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see where he goes. It is certainly the next the next person on the board of okay, there's this high level recruit. Where's he going to go? Everybody kind of ruled out Penn State when Blaze committed there. He even kind of made a joke about it. I think he posted something about Blaze going there, and no more room or something like that at Penn State. But like I'm interested to see where he's going to go. If he does split from Bassett, or if they maintain and stay together, or if they are a package deal or whatever else, right? Like yet to be seen. He's kind
you
of the
want some
next
inside
domino to fall.
information on that one?
What's that?
You want some inside information on that one?
Always,
He's going to
sure.
Pitt Johnstown.
Yeah, I mean, they were in the running for a very long time,
Hmm.
and it was sad to see
Underdog.
them not make the top four
Yeah. I
after
mean, the
being.
backstory of that is pretty cool with the deal he made with
It
Cora.
is.
So, I
It,
mean,
it, it
it's
is.
good
I
stuff.
will give him
But
that. But like, at a certain point it just seemed a little like you said, disingenuous. But
Yeah.
no, like I said,
So
I love the new landscape of recruiting though. I do love it. I may have been exhausted by it mostly because it was dominated by Bo. I would have loved to have seen a little bit more from other guys, but that's not their personality to do stuff like that, right? So we're not going to get those things. Um, but and Kevin, you said this before when we talked about it. Let's just hope that somebody doesn't try to do a Bo Bassett type thing, and they aren't Bo Bassett with the personality and the wherewithal to do all of these things, and they severely screw it up. Any other final thoughts on it, guys?
I think there's gonna be two kind of interesting things to watch in this area, and you kind of hit on both of them. One with the transfers, what is it going to look like at the end of every season, and kind of managing that budget that a lot of programs are going to have for that. But then also, with this court case coming, is there going to be big changes? Is there going to be more rules within to, they have to work? So, was this a timing thing where it was just he happened to be this amazing recruit that was top tier at the right time to get the most possible NIL of anybody? Could it change in 2 months and be restricted? We don't know. I mean, it's kind of a weird window that he fell into, and it worked out really well for him.
The one thing I do want to end on, and this is partially a Bo Bassett thing, but a bigger picture thing too, is just like, if you're a fan of that team, like, and there's all these NIL rumors and money rumors or whatever going around, like that shouldn't, like, your expectation for him should be to come in and do his best and to work hard, and it shouldn't be specifically on a number of national titles for the team or an individual. Like, things happen, like anything could happen, and I'm not hoping for anything but the best, but and he certainly seems like a kid who's going to work to get all the results and the best possible results possible. But man, when those things start flying around and people start talking about how privileged these kids are and how spoiled and all this stuff, it can get really nasty really fast. So just remember, it's not your money. It's a kid who's trying his best, more than likely.
Also remember
so.
remember their kids. They're
Yeah,
still
yeah.
young.
Yeah, we may be talking about all these things that are going on, but like keep it in perspective, right?
Yeah.
Like this is even though Micah Parsons tweeted at him, this is not Micah Parsons' contract, right? Like this was Bo Bassett that we're talking about, not a couple time NFL essentially veteran right now that we're discussing. But I don't know, it is what it is. But let's pivot. Let's kind of stay in the Iowa range, right? Like let's just go Iowa Penn State right now and kind of discuss what went on. We'll pull it out of the recap section for this, just mostly because we're going to stay on theme. The Iowa Penn State match had a lot, right? There were a lot of layers to it, and we knew it was going to be a good wrestling match, right? Like that was not ever something that anybody kind of scratched their head at or were like, oh, I wonder how good it's going to be. You knew it was going to be great. I think they had what, like 16,000 fans or something like that, a little over that, which was awesome. But like the drama and theatrics of it, with all of that starting beforehand, where we find out that we're not going to get the trash talk bowl, that's not happening. Man, I said, I'm like, it honestly does make Gabe look shitty. It does. And that's the thing, is like, I wonder if it was discussed beforehand or if it wasn't. Like I said on the last show, I thought that him kind of putting it all on the table, with what he said before after the Ohio State duel, was like trying to make sure that he was getting that match this year and that it wasn't going to happen to him again. And it happened again, right? Like last year he had enough dates left. I think it was one more left. And maybe last year he was a little banged up, a little injured, whatever else, to wrestle in that match. We get lucky enough that Carter Saraji's like, I'm going to come back for a fifth year. And you have a incredible atmosphere, one that you would not want to pass up, especially if you are the starter, which you are which Brand said, you are the starter. You're the guy. And he said it afterwards. If you're the guy, you want that atmosphere. You want that time. You want to be out there wrestling against the guy who you essentially have been calling out since before you even got to Iowa, when you were still a high school wrestler, right? Like, you want those things, you want those matches. So for him to not get that match, my heart kind of goes out to him. I've had a number of times where I've been able to talk to Gabe. He's an awesome kid. Love talking to him. He's super respectful, great wrestler, very intense, very passionate about being out there. And I was just like, man, this really sucks. And it doesn't make him look good, because the casual fans aren't privy to the conversations. Not to say that we are, but like, they're not privy to even the slightest bit of details that we are. That we were like, that was a conversation, and this is what they discussed and stuff like that. The casual fan is just like, oh, he's ducking him. This is a major duck. And it's like, guys, I don't think so. Right. And then obviously afterwards, where Brand says they didn't want to put him out there, they wanted him to be fresh for the end of the season. You're just like, man, like, that just doesn't seem right. Just doesn't seem right at all. Give the kid the opportunity, but kind of is what it is. What did you guys make of, first of all, the decision at 184 to not send out Gabe Arnold? And mind you, keep this in mind, I think it happens again when they wrestle Oklahoma State. But first, let's tackle Penn State. What did you guys think of the decision?
I think the part that annoyed me the most is that he wrestled on Sunday. Like, so you burned a date for Angelo when he could have had both of these duels without burning 2 days. So like, you could have had an opportunity to put him up against another top 12 guy. If that's what you're trying to get him the best competition, as Tom said, you want to see him against the best guys, not a bunch of bums, but you didn't give him the opportunity to do back to back. So it kind of takes away any argument you made for that. So it doesn't, I can't see any logic behind it. Unless they're trying to, I don't know, save him from embarrassment from it, or, not give Carter a feel before Big Tens. Like, I don't understand why you wouldn't throw your starter out there. You're already down, before you start, you're not favored to win. So why not go out there and try to win as many bouts as possible, put yourself in the best possible seating situation for Big Tens, but to not start a guy who's healthy, who has indicated that he wants to wrestle him, who is going to likely face him at Big Tens. Like, what is the benefit of not wrestling that match?
Unless Gabe is better at chess than he is at wrestling. He was like, I'm going to talk all this trash knowing that I'm about to duck this so hard. I'm going to get out of this match one way, shape, or form. I'm going to beg the Brands to keep me on the bench. That's not what happened. Like, that guy's so mad. He didn't get to wrestle that match. And yeah, I mean, like, the most insane thing would be if they were just like, turns out Ferrari's our guy the whole time. And like, we never ever get to see this match, and Ferrari's red shirt's pulled, and it's just like, that's how we enter the postseason, which I would hate, and I think all of us would too. Not anything against Ferrari, but just like, I'd love to see the match. We want to see the match. We thought we were going to see the match. We were excited to see the match. I feel like, and I talked about this last week too, like, just the dichotomy between, how Brands was talking at the press conference versus, what Gabe was saying. I feel like he was, like, in a way punishing him. Like, you're not going to go up there and just talk about how we're going to go in there and start doing this and that. You're not wrestling. We've got
very much
guy.
Has the feel of like coach is trying to exert his power and show that he's in charge, and he makes the moves. And I don't know, it feels like a very Brands thing. And come at me if you think I'm being a hater to Iowa, but Brands do some silly shit from time to time, and this seems like one of the silly ass things they do. It doesn't make any sense. There's no benefit to it. So
it's a great opportunity to teach a lesson,
Arnold and Gabe's still too young to have enough juice to do it, right? And I think that, like, if he was being punished, it's not like Sam Stroll, right? Like Sam Stoll, where Stoll was, probably not supposed to wrestle in. I mean, even if there were some theatrics or whatever else, where, I can remember him coming out and brands of stopping him, saying you're not doing it. Even that was planned or whatever else. Like he had enough juice to do that, even if it was, you know, theater. But like there are guys that have been in that room and been in that lineup that definitely have the juice to say I'm going or I'm not. Right. And we've seen it throughout the years. You don't have to be some sort of insider, right? Like Gabe isn't there yet where he can call his own shot, maybe if that's the case where he was being punished. But I don't think I don't think at all. I don't think he should have been punished at all for doing anything, right? Like you want a guy that the reason you went out and got him is because he was that confident kid that was going to go up against literally Goliath in the weight class and in the NCAA and be like, I'm going after him, right? Like, would you rather him not say anything or whatever, like, or just cower to it? Like, no, you want him to be confident, and he seemed to be confident in it. But
Well, and he's not a habitual line stepper, right? Like he's not the guy who keeps getting into shit with people. Like he's been very respectful and he's been very like open about the in room battles with Ferrari and how they're teammates and they're there to make each other better. Like he's been the man. Like big fan of his. So I don't know. It just seems weird and to everybody. So bummer.
Now, if before Big Ten finals he yells "fuck your couch,"
Yeah,
and
right.
I might lose it. I might become an Iowa fan if that happens.
Yeah. Oh,
yeah,
what a great show.
Yeah,
Another
like
20-year-old reference.
and like you guys mentioned, he wrestled what 2 days later at Maryland,
Mhm.
wrestled Smith. Again, Smith is a good wrestler. What top 10, like number 9 in the country, top 10.
Yeah.
Arnold goes out and beats him in tiebreaker.
hmm
hmm
You know, to me, it's like, hey, I'm gonna beat the 4-time national champ. Oh, sorry, I didn't wrestle. Just kidding. 2 days later, I'm gonna beat a guy that's number 9 and beat him in tiebreaker. You know, to me, it seems like you should go out and dominate a guy like that to prove, like, hey, I am better than Carter. I just didn't get that chance. You know what? Again,
The the only thing recent history wise that would indicate that this was a load management thing, we're gonna want him to be fresh for whatever, is like, yeah, he just beat Rogotsky in overtime. Conventional wisdom would say he should have beat him by more than an overtime takedown, and then you have that match too. So I don't know. That's that also just sucks for Gabe because now coaches can be like, look, see, he's tired. We don't get tired here.
yeah.
yeah, and the other thing you guys mentioned too about, Coach Brands and some lineup questions is what he did this Sunday with Teamer at 157. Right? Teamer doesn't wrestle and he burns a red shirt with Estrada for one match in a dual meet that they were favored by what, 20, 22 points?
Did
So like,
that did burn his red shirt?
Burn his
yeah,
red shirt, yeah.
yeah. So that like something like that doesn't make sense. Like that to me, that means Teamer is out for the year, but there's no indication of that. So again, some of these guys, they want a shot, maybe Estrada wanted it and that's fine, but just as an outside person looking in, it's like, you're going to burn this guy's red shirt for one duel. To me, that doesn't make sense, but I don't make these big bucks coach and we just sit behind a desk and talk.
Yeah, but it is a head scratcher, right? Because like if if the burned red shirt wasn't part of the equation, I'd be like, okay, well, Teamer is fresh off of an injury, right? Like he wrestled in
And fresh off getting emasculated.
yeah, like he wrestled in two duels, right? Like that's what I'm saying. Like he wrestled in two coming off of, and he wrestled two ranked guys coming off of an injury. All right, let's give him a rest, right? Like that would be perfectly fine. But like for for them to burn a red shirt on a guy that probably won't be the guy. I mean, if unless Teamer is really that badly hurt, um, again, unless he re-injured it. But to burn a red shirt on a guy, I just don't. Yeah, I don't understand. But yeah, I did miss that had burned his red shirt. Um,
And load management doesn't make sense for Arnold either. He had 11 matches coming into this weekend. That's not a lot. Like it's not. I mean, he's a
it's
redshirt
it's more
freshman. He
than
should
some
be able to.
starters.
Yeah, but there's a kid for Franklin Marshall who has 29 wins. Like,
The Georgia
suck it
Bulldog,
up.
Vice Cresho. Let's
Come
go,
on.
baby.
Let's step it up a little bit. I mean, this is a conversation we've had before too, but like
Yeah,
you can't manage your way out of not wrestling all year. You gotta have the matches. And if, against a guy like like Carter, 4-time national champion going for the record of getting his fifth. I would want as many opportunities to get my hands on him as possible. And if I could
Mhm.
get 3 opportunities to do that instead of just 1 or 2, I'd want that. I mean,
Yeah.
how are you gonna have that feel, and how are you gonna make those adjustments if you never have the match?
Yeah. So what do we make of the match with Ferrari and Starachi? I feel like
Boring.
it was boring, and for people saying that Starachi like couldn't get to his leg or he didn't take any shots. There wasn't there wasn't really an opening for him to take a shot. Ferrari wrestled from a knee. He backed up a lot. Like, and this isn't me being like, I'm, big Carter fan, whatever else. Like, there was a stall warning from him backing up. He may have taken some more shots, but he was also like on a knee taking those shots, right? Like
On
it,
the edge, yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, yeah, like it wasn't like he was in the middle, like he was trying to set some stuff up or anything else. Like the only big takeaway for me is that Carter wasn't able to finish when he did get to his leg, though. That was big. Um, but he also wasn't really taking chances, right? Like I said, like his openings came on reattacks because of how Ferrari decided to wrestle him and be very closed off and not tying up and being down on a knee. And, you know, that's very hard for anyone to wrestle. And but you also know that like Carter never feels like he is not in control of a match. And I feel like that's kind of what it was. He's like, if this is how he's going to wrestle me, then this is where the match is going to go. But it was telling that he was not able to finish. That was the biggest kind of takeaway from me, where he was like in on a shot where he's normally able to finish and couldn't get to it. What were your guys' takeaways from the match that actually did happen?
It takes a lot of maturity to wrestle that patient, against a guy who's backing up and on his knee like that. I've talked to several people who were high level D1 wrestlers, and um, this one in particular was like, yeah, I wrestled this guy 4 times. I lost 3 of them. The one time I didn't like chase him the whole time and push the pace the whole time, like I was just like I'm just gonna do what he does, and I beat him. It was the easiest match I've ever had. And I'm not gonna throw the names out, but it's like sometimes if you have that patience to just let the match come to you, and like you said, he controlled the pace, he controlled the space on the mat. It never looked like he was in really any danger. And that's what you should expect to get out of a guy who's looking for his fifth NCAA title. So
Yeah. Sometimes you got to win ugly. You don't win 4 titles and not win ugly sometimes.
And that's what I was just looking back through his wrestle stat. I mean, the majority of his matches are bonus, major tech, lots of pins. But then
Yeah,
you
that was
look
his
at
first
some of the
decision of the
decisions.
year.
Yeah, you look at some of the decisions he's had over the years, though. Like last year, he had a 5-3 decision over Adam Kemp and a 4-2 decision with Rocco Welsh, which was a good match. But then you go back and there's some that are like head scratchers. There's 6-2 to Bailey O'Reilly from Minnesota. And he's got a lot. He's got matches like that. 5-1 over Julian Broderson. Like those are guys that he can and should handle easily, but he has low scoring matches with them, and those were never in doubt though. Just like the majority of his matches have not been in doubt, and this one wasn't either.
if I'm remembering correctly, the Kemp match was the first round of NCAA's when he had his knee
It just
all,
come back. Yep.
yeah, and he gave up the first takedown, and everyone was like, "Oh my god,
Yeah,
oh
it was
my
like I
god,
think it
it's
was like
gonna
the
happen."
second. I think it was his second match
His
because the
second
first
Was
round.
it his
one was
second one?
against
Okay.
the first one was against the kid that he injury defaulted to at Big Tens,
Andrew
and
It
Sparks.
was it was
Andrew,
Sparks. Yeah,
Andrew
yeah, yeah.
Sparks,
And
yeah,
he
and
still gave up
Bubba
the
Sparks
first
Sparks.
takedown
Sparks.
in
and
that one, I
Sparks
think.
took him down. Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
yep, yeah, I do remember that.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, I wonder how much of Carter's performance was, all the hype was about him and Arnold, and he didn't get that match, So I just wonder if there's like a mentality thing, like a, adrenaline change that, yeah, I don't have the match I want, so I'm gonna go out there and wrestle. It just maybe that was part of it too. Maybe I don't
Kevin
know.
and I
Maybe
are thinking the same thing, so I'm gonna let Kevin say it.
Yeah, he was the one who was like, Well, I thought the other guy was better.
Yeah, he did say that, but is that for show or was he just was he
It was
actually, but
it was
I don't,
for show. Yeah, it was a complete dig at Arnold.
it was, I know, I agree.
It
Yeah.
was great.
Yeah. But I mean, it was even crazy that they like left no doubt with that. I know we kind of moved on from that, but like they left no doubt that Ferrari was taking the mat. Gabe Arnold didn't even weigh in.
Mhm.
Like that was the crazy thing for me is like when I sent a text to who was it? I messaged Bosch because he was the one that was putting everything out. I messaged Bosch. I'm like, did Arnold even weigh in? And he's like, nope. And I'm like, all right, well, I don't know what to make of any of this. Like, but I don't know, But no, I thought the match was boring. But when you watch it, Carter is in control. That the just like I said, the one telling thing was him not being able to finish his one is that the takedown to the leg when he was in on the leg. But no, I mean, the other matches were really good too. I mean, obviously 57 was a hell of a match. Kasich, he has, man, the crazy part about him is that one, he's up weight classes, and two, that like he hasn't like he had what 7 straight wins last year on the backside and has looked even better since his NCAA performance, right? Like obviously you think guys year over year are going to get better, but like that consistency of stringing together 7 wins at NCAAs to come back and place third, which ultimately was a huge catalyst in why they broke the record. And now like everything he's doing this year and how strong he looks in the weight class, it's just like, man, I am supremely impressed by him. No Lehigh Valley bias either, just very impressed by him.
Yeah, it's crazy to think that it was between him and what's his name, Facundo for that spot. We weren't sure that was Kasich's spot because he's a red shirt to use yet, right? And kind of proved his point that he's the man. And yeah, he's just looking really, really good. And it's just so impressive. Starting the year at 41 last year, kind of get thrown in at 49. And like you said, that backside run he had was just incredible, just pinning dudes everywhere, left and right. And now he's up another weight class and just a number one guy right now. It's insane how good he has been.
What other matches stood out to you guys then too?
Just real quick, the feeling it must have been to have Teamer in the air and just give that fist pump to the crowd.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's something.
Like that's man.
That's a picture you put on the wall.
Oh, dude, that's
a mural you get painted at your house.
Yeah, a large. That's a wall size picture you put on the wall. Yeah,
it's a Facebook picture.
It's his MySpace picture.
Profile pic has changed.
What other matches stood out to you guys?
Josh Barr, dude. Josh Barr is legit. He was in that match the whole time. He was not, wilting. Like he was right there. And just to keep that rolling. I mean, good on Buchanan.
Speaking of which, I hate to cut you off, but do you guys believe in the kale tax? I see everybody talk about it when these freshmen have to lose. Do you guys think the kale tax is real?
Well, I was just going to ask if you guys have the same I do about Barr winning that rematch whether it's Big Tens or NCAAs.
It's going to happen.
That's Barr's match next time they meet or when it matters most, probably, probably NCAA. I just got a vibe. I don't know.
It's going to happen. It's what always happens.
It'll be interesting, man. So this weekend, Friday, is Michigan Penn State. And not to bring it back to Michigan, but I'm like, now he's going to get Cardenas.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll see what that looks like. And I don't know, man. I think it's going to just the Big Ten 197s are going to cannibalize each other, and we're going to get AJ Ferrari as the number 1 seeded NCAAs. The reality is it's the path is there.
It's there.
Yeah, but that's the thing. That's the thing about it.
Andy Smith for 1 seed. I'm putting my vote in now.
Yeah, I don't know. But do you guys believe in the kale tax? Do you think it's real?
I just think no one else has been undefeated. I think that's more it.
So do I. But it's just so funny when you see it though. Like it is so funny. I was like, people talking about this like it's real. Like this actually happens. Like No, guys, he just wrestled the number one guy in the country. That's literally what happened. I mean, the other part of that is Lilladall lost to Dean Peterson, who isn't number one, right?
Mhm.
So like, if you want to throw some Kale tax juju on that one, fine, but not Josh Barr losing losing to Buchanan.
It would be funnier if he had like four guys go 158-0 and like they just all stopped there. Like,
Load
we
management.
gotta, yeah, we gotta sit this one out, guys. Sorry.
Load management.
Load management, yeah. Um, the I know we talked about it last week, and Robbie, you weren't here, but I think Austin said it about Messenbrink getting bonus on Caliendo, and it was just like, how crazy is it that these guys are 1 and 2, and there's that big of a gap? Like that is insane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I made the comparison in my Big Ten write up this week, and quite frankly to anyone else who asked me about it. But I was like, the gap between the 1 and 2 at 165 is basically the gap between Penn State and any other team in the country.
Yes.
It's that big. So yeah, I don't know, man. Mitchell Messenbrink is a super freak, and I've
Yeah, if he could lose the serial killer glasses though, I'd be a bigger fan.
He's so weird. Like, and I don't mean that in a bad way. He seems like genuinely likable and has the right
he's like fun weird.
personality. Yeah. What was that like rant he went on about how like the cosmos and time doesn't exist or something? I don't know. I listened to the whole thing and I was like,
he was a ton of fun last year, in between, like before the finals in the interview room. He was just like he's just like a ball of energy, man, and like didn't stop smiling and everything else. Like, yeah, I'm sorry, but I can see why Burrows wanted to punch him in the head. Like he's just like in your face. Like he's got to be annoying to wrestle. And he goes with the baggy singlet too, which is even funnier. And it's so purposeful. But that match was just like, man, like this is pretty wild. These are the 1 and 2 guys in the country, and the number one is teching the number two. I can't remember a disparity like that in a very long time. I mean, maybe it is what Kale and Cormier or something like that, but
How is he? And this might be a transition to our next point if we're done, but how is he not the Hodge favorite at this point? I mean,
I
yeah,
mean,
there's other guys out there, but like, how do you not give it to a guy that's so dominant? You know, Carter, if he wins his fifth, okay, I see an argument. Gable, maybe
He barely beat Ferrari. Just saying.
right. Yeah, I mean,
yeah, I
yeah,
agree with that. I mean, that is a great transition, right? Like Messenbrink has to be one of those guys that's top for the Hodge.
He hasn't given up any offensive points, has he?
I don't think so. I mean, most of those guys haven't, but I don't think so. I mean, him and Gable have like crazy bonus rates, but the thing is like Messenbrink and Ramos are tied for the most tech falls right now.
And Messenbrink
Gable
is 14-0 with 14 tech falls.
Yeah.
I guess 12. Two of those were
Gable hasn't wrestled the number two guy this year and tech followed him yet.
No, that's yeah. Like Gable hasn't
has an advantage, right?
Not yet.
Gable hasn't hit any of those guys yet, so it is very different. Gable's been super dominant, obviously. I mean, nothing but techs and pins. Got another
He's
pin.
also only had 8 matches.
Yeah, got another pin over the weekend. I do like that he is, caveat. I do like that he's back in for the full Big Ten season, half of things. First half of the season was just like a couple of matches. Now it's like Big Ten starts and he's all in.
He's kicking the crap out of everybody. He just pinned Slavakuski.
Yeah.
On Sunday.
Yeah.
Slavakuski was like running away, and he still pulled him back in.
And pinned him with a double.
Right.
But yeah, who do you guys have as the Hodge favorite? Is it Messenbrink? Is it Gable? Is it? I mean, Starachi not getting bonus last week, I feel like kind of pulls him back to number two. It's going to take some guys not to get a bonus point win to kind of bring Carter's average back up. Kekaizen certainly in there. I think he's gotten bonus against everyone, including the number two guy he's gotten bonus against. Literally every time they wrestle, he bonuses him. So, Who do you guys think is the Hodge favorite right now?
I think you lean Messenbrink with just how dominant he's been. I don't like the idea of Carter getting the Hodge just because. I mean, you say just because he won his fucking fifth NCAA championship.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I don't like the idea of it giving it to him because it's a fifth championship. Because I like the idea of the Hodge being, showcasing it, exemplary performances. And if you're going, 20-0 with 20 tech falls, including against the number two guy in the country, I think that's pretty impressive. Not giving up any offensive points. Like, I mean, he's got some time to go through with the rest of the Big Ten season and the postseason, but that's pretty impressive.
Just you feel like they're gonna give co-Hodges again, and you feel like Carter's gonna be the other recipient of that just because. Yeah, the 5 titles I think is gonna put him up and over. And I don't agree with it, but I
But
just
then you
feel like,
make it a lifetime achievement award, which we've seen,
yeah, which we've seen.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
but still
I don't,
sucks.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, you got to go Messenbrink too. It's hard to not put that guy up there, especially right now. Just Tech, the number 2 guy, hasn't given up any offensive points. Literally, Tech fools everybody. Like, how much more dominant can you be? I mean,
Yeah.
if you pin everyone, you could say you caught people. You don't catch people and tech them.
Yeah.
It's not fluke. He's just so dominant.
I think
So
the argument could be made for Hendrickson if he's able to win an NCAA title, because he'd go through
I agree.
Kirkfleet and Gable. And with as impressive as he's been this year, with his bonus rate, with his dominance, there could certainly be a case made there. But it would take a hell of a run at NCAA's to make that reality.
And a couple
And he can hit a
grenades,
backflip
probably.
too.
Yeah.
so here's where you can make the argument at several of these other weights above Messenbrink. All right, so heavyweight, for example, there are 2 guys who are NCAA champions in there, one of which is an Olympic champion. And then if Hendrickson could get it done and win it all, like obviously that would make his case too. But there's potentially 3 heavyweights that are on this list, therefore making it very, very difficult to win that weight, which should be considered in the Hodge Trophy piece of it. Same with 174. You've got Carter and Parker, both NCAA champions. Like, that's a very deep weight class still.
I feel like Parker's
Mendez,
ahead right now, though.
sure, and you can make that argument very easily. He's crushing dudes. 141, you've also got Mendez and Alirez. You've got 2 NCAA champs. Alirez has not competed as much this year, but that doesn't make it any less difficult for Mendez to win, his second straight title too. And he's been really, really good all season. Certainly not Messenbrink level good. Very few have, but again, slightly different weight classes with different levels. And in fact, if I was going to look at 141 here, I think you can make the argument that it's a deeper weight class than 165 is to this point. But those would probably be where the arguments end. As much as I love Matt Ramos, and I guess you do have a defending champ with Figueroa in there too. So that if I'm going to make that point at other weights, I'm going to make it there too. I don't know. I guess he's still be in the loop then. But I just think if you're going to make the argument for anybody other than Mitchell Messenbrink, it has to be based on the level of competition at those weights. And I do think that it would be foolish to think that that's not considered at that point. But no, I mean, this is the most fun I think that we've had this debate in a long time. As much as I don't like the Co-Hodge situation. And again, let's say hypothetically it goes to Carter and Messenbrink. I'm super fine with that too. I'm good. I don't have a problem with it at all. I think that Carter, if you win 5 NCAA titles, you should get a Hodge Trophy, just like a McDonald's prize in your bag. Like,
He gets 5 trophies. He's already got enough. He doesn't
we'll
need
have a
another one
6th.
just
Yeah,
because he did
it's
that.
it's not like rings. You don't need to have a 6th finger to put a ring on. He could just put it on a bigger shelf. He can afford it.
But then on the other hand, to me,
A
it's
big ass credenza.
So that's where the ring would be on the other hand if it's a 6th one. Just
that
continuing
is
the
a good
analogy.
point.
to me, the Hodge should go to the other guy because that's kind of like our Heisman Trophy, right? Has there ever been
Yep.
co-Heismans?
No.
No, you know,
Not that
so
I
it's
not that I can remember.
yeah, not
But there
and
has been co-Hodges more than just that other year.
exactly, yeah. So that's why part of me is like, okay, they've done the past, they'll do it again. But on the other side, it's like, well, why? It should be the
Right.
one most dominant guy like the Heisman Trophy gets. So yeah,
You
I
don't
go back.
always have to like it.
I don't know.
And Hodge should automatically go to a quarterback too.
Give it to everybody. Give it to me. I want the Hodge Trophy.
I mean, I think this year it can be it's going to be highly contested, more so than in other years. Right? Like you had Spencer and Gable who shared it before.
Mhm.
And that was really hard to pick between the two. And those two were the absolute best guys. But this year you are going to potentially have a number of guys. Say Ramos does run the table, Messenbrink runs the table, Gable runs the table, right? Like, you can obviously throw in whoever wins at 84, because they're super dominant right now at 84, with the outlier of last week for Starachi. But like, it is going to be a highly contested award to get this year. And I think you're right, Kevin. It does come down to, and it's kind of a football 12 team playoff conversation of strength of record and strength of schedule. Do these guys have the resume this year that puts them, over the top? And the the guy to go to is Jason Bryant. Honestly, Jason Bryant runs the numbers on these things all the time. I mean, even last year he sent me the numbers, of all these things.
Who won it
And
last year?
what's that?
Who won it last year? I don't remember.
Um, I
Was it
think
Brooks?
Kekheisen won it last year.
It was it was Brooks or Keckheisen, I think. Hold on. Let me
Might
look this up.
no, might it was Brooks. You're right. It
It
was
was
Brooks.
Brooks.
It was Brooks, not Kekheisen. Because Kekheisen did have an argument for
Yeah, it was
doing it because he
Brooks.
did bonus his way through the entire year,
Yeah.
Yeah.
just like he's doing now. But it was Brooks at the end of it.
Yeah.
Um,
My bad. I derailed you.
but no, I mean, I think it is a strength of record and strength of schedule type of a thing, right? If Messenbrink goes throughout the entire year and he wrestles all of the guys that are in the top five, or let's call it top 10, and he's got bonuses against all of them are tech falls essentially. It's going to be really hard to make a case for anyone else. If and I don't see Kekheisen bonusing Starachi, but if Kekheisen wins and he bonuses through everyone, including Starachi, he should be the Hodge. Like, you beat a 4-time champ, you should probably get that win. I even think that if he was to bonus everyone except for Carter Starachi and win, they would probably look at him for that co-Hodge and
Yeah.
no one else, if that was the case. I even think he would be above Gable in that sense. But I don't know.
Well,
We'll
that comes
certainly see.
back
I
to
mean, we've
match
got a lot
counts
of
too.
season
Like,
left, but like at this point, it's really cool to kind of look and see, like, you do have a lot of legit contenders that are still in the mix. However, looking at 125, Ramos hasn't hit what? How many guys in the top 10 has Ramos even hit yet?
He
I don't
beat
think
Spratley, Ventresca. He beat. That might be it in the top
it might
10.
be it, right?
didn't wrestle Vince because Vincent got hurt.
Yeah. So I
Let's see,
think
Kelby.
he's got kind of a ways to go, but like these other weights, it's pretty dominant wins from a lot of these guys that are at the top, outside of Gable, even though he did just pin the number 10 and then the number 8 in back-to-back weeks. So still a lot to be determined, but no, I think, it's probably going to come down to the wire with how dominant these guys at the top have been.
You
But it'll
guys
be
think
fun.
match counts should be considered as well then? If that is a
Absolutely do.
I would
tiebreaker?
say so. I think
Who?
I think you have
Looking
to
at
take it all
Ramos.
into consideration.
Yeah, Ramos is 21-0 now. You know, he has what, 4, 5 matches left plus Big Tens. He could look at 35-0 record where Gable, has 8 matches now. He could be 15, 16-0. So obviously double the matches is more impressive, especially if they're close to similar bonus rate. I think you got to consider that as if there's a bunch of ties, you got to go who's been out there more, I think, too.
I agree with that.
Ramos is not going to run into anybody. Oh, that's not true. I'm sorry. He runs into Caleb Smith February 23rd. February 9th, he runs into Cooper Flynn of Minnesota. Um,
So
that's pretty much the toughest remaining opponents he has before Big Tens.
Gonna be fun. A lot of wrestling left to do. So we'll see kind of what pans out there. Let's move and have a little fun. I'm not saying this isn't fun, but let's talk wrestling shoes. Obviously, I'm a big shoe guy, as you can see behind me, but wrestling shoes wasn't really the thing that I always collected. Mike Mal, tons of wrestling shoes. He was the guy that always had a ton. I have a couple of pairs, including the last pair that I ever wore as a wrestler was my high school pair. But what were your guys' favorite pairs of wrestling shoes? And do you feel like wrestling shoes are better now or that they were better back then? And I'm probably asking a stupid question in that regard, considering we're all over 30. But um, what are your guys' thoughts on wrestling shoes back then versus now?
My first thought
Yeah.
before we get this started, I'm wearing wrestling shoes right now. So that's my credentials for this conversation. But go ahead, Robbie.
And your sponsorship.
Yes.
There you go.
use Blood Round, 20% off.
Yes.
Blood
Blood
round
20.
plug.
I mean, the short answer, it's tough. I have so many shoes written down here, man. Like, I don't know better or worse. I love a lot of what they're doing. Like, the shout out to Adidas. I was working with them for years, and I had a ton of Adidas wrestling shoes. They redid the Combat Speed, those fives, and then they just re-released the fours again. I like the fives because they basically they built them a little bit more solid, and they weren't going to fall apart quite as easily. And then enough people complained about that, and so now they went back to this version that falls apart a little bit more easily. I mean, it's still durable. It's still going to last you probably a full season and a half, 2 seasons maybe. But you know, the easy answer for me to say as a nearly 40-year-old man is the old shoes were better. So and also like they again they re-released the Combat Speeds for a reason. They don't really get rid of the takedowns for Nike for a reason. Dan Gable still has ASICS shoes that are made every year because people like buying Dan Gable shoes. And, obviously they've changed over the years. But I don't know. I love wrestling shoes. I think the old ones were better. Do you guys, well, I'm going to let you guys answer. And then I have a sub context or a sub like Reddit piece I want to talk to you about too regarding shoes.
This could be a 40-minute conversation for Kevin.
It really could.
That's why I wanted to have the conversation because, like I said, I'm a sneaker guy. You can't see the whole thing, but I think there's like 70 pairs behind me. But like, I knew Kevin was like a lover of wrestling shoes, not to the point where
You
he
only
was-
have 2 feet, right?
Yeah, I know.
Okay,
And
just
I
making
can't
sure.
remember the last time that I wore the same pair of shoes every single day outside of going to the gym. Which I don't have to. I mean, this is there's more in the closet. But no, I knew Kevin loved wrestling shoes. That's why I was like, I want to have this conversation because, like I said, I had it. I asked Jamil, and Jamil was like, "Oh yeah, old school all day." My favorite pair is the blue Pursuit 2s from Asics. I was a big Asics guy back then. When I was wrestling, so I had a bunch of Asics. I had a pair of Kales as well. Um, I was always pretty envious of the Colots, even though my foot was not it just didn't look good. Like I had a teammate of mine that had a pair and I put them on and I was like, I cannot do that ever again. I thought they were awesome, that looked really cool, but
Look
I
like
couldn't
clown
do
shoes
it.
for big feet, though.
Yeah, like it wasn't that's why like the smaller guys were able to wear the Colots. They looked really cool, especially that purple pair. But no,
Yeah.
I love those. Those were really cool. But no, I was an Asics guy basically like all my life. I have pairs of Adidas now, because Adidas used to send them to us when we were at Flow. But like I loved the Asics. The Kales were awesome. And then, like I said, the Pursuit 2, by far like my favorite shoe. I wish that I still had that. When I was coaching in South Carolina, I allowed one of my wrestlers to wear them, and I never got them
You never
back.
got him back. I have a
Um,
list of wrestlers who've stolen shit from me over the years. I'm
yeah,
tracking them all
like I said,
down.
I never gave up the last pair I wore. I can't remember what that player was called. It was the Asics pair that had no laces in them. I can't remember what they were called.
Oh, the super light, super flex, super
Yeah, yeah,
flex
yeah.
lights.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Bullshit.
But that was my high school wrestling shoe that I wore. And but yeah, the Pursuit 2, that's a pair that if I were Kevin that I would be sitting here wearing right now because I thought they were super comfortable. Robbie,
So,
Austin.
so
Yeah.
two notes on this.
Mhm.
One, I was a poor kid growing up, so um, my choice for shoes was always whatever was in the final score for East Bay, because I also grew up in the middle of nowhere in
Yeah.
Wyoming and nobody had wrestling shoes. So I'd get to go to the Final Score magazine and pick out my shoes for the year. That being said, I think the durability of shoes, the old shoes, is significantly better than the newer ones, even though they're lighter and more flexible and all that fun stuff. I definitely blew out a lot more shoes while coaching than I ever did while competing. So I think there's certainly something to be said for that. Like I got the first edition of the Rudis shoe when they came out, and I blew them out within like 3 weeks. So I've heard they've gotten better. I haven't bought any since then, but I don't know. There's something to be said for quality. Um, I had the Bruce Baumgartner Fat Kid shoes, the heavyweight shoes, and those were always my favorite. So I think I was just looking those up. They're selling for like 250 on eBay. So if I have those in a box in my mom's house somewhere, I have to drag those out. But now, Kev, I had this conversation with Kevin before. My favorite shoe ever, hands down, is the Henry Cejudo Vapor Speed 2s. I had the orange. I had both. I had the silver and white and the orange and gray, and I loved them. They fit my feet perfect. I have big feet. I wear 13 or 14, depending on brand. It doesn't look like clown shoes like a lot of them do. For bigger shoes, they fit great. I love the rounded heel. I think that was kind of what sealed it for me. Like, being fat and clumsy, I would trip over my shoes a lot, but having the rounded soles made a huge difference because I wouldn't get caught on like trying to drive. So I really liked those. I would wear those again.
Yeah, I'm going with Holmes. I was a Pursuit 2 guy growing up. The orange gold ones were my go-to, just being Northampton black and orange. I thought they matched all the gear, all the singlets, and that they were the best. But yeah, I think
You guys had a
shoes just
lot of singlets back in the day, by the way.
yeah, look good, feel good, wrestle good, right? Um,
So they have that concrete sponsorship comes in handy.
yeah, a lot of cement chokes on our shirts. But yeah, it's I think shoes are just like everything else in life. I think they were better quality back in the day. They were meant to last. We had a refrigerator repaired a few months ago, and even the tech said like, yeah, refrigerators suck now. They're going to only last 4 days, 4 or 5 days. And he's like, yeah, I have one that was made in the 80s. It's still running back in my house. So I was like, well, yeah, it's just kind of par for the course. Everything is shitty material now because they want you to buy more of their product, right? So yeah, I kind of agree with that, at least when it comes to wrestling shoes too.
Yeah. I mean, the only shoe we haven't really mentioned is the Rulons. I think everybody kind of loved the Rulons too.
I hated those shoes.
Really?
Felt
I
like I was
loved them.
like
I didn't have
wrestling
a
with
pair.
like
I had
off-road
teammates that had
tires
pairs,
on.
but
I hated them. Too much grip for me. Like I'd fall over.
that's actually why I loved them. But no, like I said, Pursuit 2, I wish I bought like 10 pairs of those back then.
I
Remember
had
those
a pair
super
of the
ugly brute
Colots.
shoes for John Smith, the year he came out with those ungodly,
Oh
ugly
yeah.
red abominations? Those were
Yeah.
terrible.
Didn't
I wonder if you have a vest that matches those.
The original I mean, the John Smiths were pretty dope though. He did
Yeah,
have
except for that year. That year they
that year
sucked.
weren't good. Yeah, before that, the John Smiths were really cool. I miss like
The zip up ones that would cut the
yeah the
bejesus out of you if you threw his legs.
oh
Yeah.
the Adidas ones.
Hmm.
Yeah, those
Those
ones were
were
really
awful.
cool. Those ones were like I remember that was when I feel like wrestling shoes got like super expensive. That was like I think
yep.
my junior year or my sophomore. I think it was my junior year of high school when those came out, and a teammate of mine got them, and everybody was like, "Holy shit! Can't believe you actually got that shoe." And it was like a super like it was just like at that point it was like really expensive for us to think like paying that much for a wrestling shoe was pretty crazy. I feel like that's when they got like really expensive.
They absolutely did. Those were the EQTs, the
Hmm.
Adidas Sydney EQTs. I had a pair of the Colots. Those did blow out like mid-season. So I was probably just wrestling super hard because that's what I do, and that's, wasn't built to handle quite that level of force. I
What was
never
your
lifted like
subreddit question, Kevin?
I mean, it was just going into all these different shoes, man. Like the Super Slays. So it's funny. I blew out the Colots. I went and bought a pair of Super Slays, and those lasted for years. Those were fantastic shoes. Loved them forever. I actually talked to Brandon Slay on Blood Round about it, and he was like, "I still have like 6 pairs in my size that I'm ready to wear whenever I want to wear them." But like, I was like, "You should." I liked the Rulons. These are just me talking about shoes for a second. Well, I shouldn't say that. I never had the Rulons, but I do have still a pair of like the pink and blue and yellow aggressors when they like switched over from Rulon to those. Those have lasted forever. I had those, wrestled for them or with them for years when I was coaching, and I'll probably bust them out tomorrow at practice. The Dan Gable Ultra Flexes need a shout out. Kendall Cross Addy Stars.
Yeah,
Um,
Kendall's were awesome. I loved
yeah,
those.
those shoes. Everyone who was a badass had those, either the black ones or the pearl whites. Those were just
I
awesome shoes.
loved that shoe.
Nobody releases a pearl white shoe anymore. That's something that we're really missing as a
30.
society.
Yeah, I mean, if you look, Yanni might be releasing a. I mean, there's a bunch of different colorways that Spartan is looking at putting out for
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
Yanni.
Yeah.
Well,
No, I'm a
Yanni's a
big
shoe guy too, though, so it makes sense.
Big shoe
yes.
guy.
And I have it written down here, and I don't want to forget it if we move on. But I did want to give a shout out to Mike Amin. I got my Team Amin hat on right now, getting inducted in the National Wrestling Hall of Fame coming up during the Northwestern and Indiana duel. I think that was on Sunday.
Hmm.
Malik and Tim Johnson were on the call for that, and he kind of talked about what that meant. So, but he's been an awesome dude. He's been on Blood Round a handful of times and has always been a big supporter of us and the wrestling community as a whole, obviously of the University of Michigan and Detroit
Very
Catholic Central as
outspoken.
well.
Can't
Yeah,
miss those tweets.
yeah, exactly.
Can't miss
But
those
no,
tweets.
he's good. He's a good dude, and as the rest of the Amin crew. So wanted to shout
Yeah.
him out before I forgot.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Last thing, the wrestling shoes. Were you guys around for the Pumas that people started wearing?
So I remember a guy at a wrestling camp.
Yes, I do
Yeah.
remember those.
Yeah, pointed out that he was rocking Puma wrestling shoes. I remember
Essential Dolphin had a lot of them, like the Peppelman brothers and those guys.
Yeah,
Lisa
Templeman
Mine.
Brothers. That's a name I haven't heard in a while.
yeah, I remember those. I actually have a pair. I mean, to no surprise of anyone, I have a pair of the Jordan wrestling
I
shoes,
was
the
just gonna
Michael
ask.
Jordan
Yeah,
I
wrestling
wanted
shoes.
to get those.
those
Yeah.
guys have
It's
them,
I mean, I've never worn them. They were worn one time. Funny story about them is I'm obviously part of a ton of different like sneaker forums and stuff. Like I've ordered sneakers from all different countries and stuff. And there was a guy that was in this sneaker forum that had a pair of these Jordan wrestling shoes, and he had no idea like what they were. And he was like, got this pair of shoes, it's a wrestling shoe. I think it's he's like, I think it's a boxing shoe. Not really sure what it is. And he's like, I'm looking to sell it. He's like, I'll sell it for like super cheap. And I like messaged him and I was like, how much do you want from me? He was like, I don't know, like $20. I sent like $20 and I had this, it's an 8.5. He's like, it was literally only worn one time. He's like, I got them from a friend of mine that was, that was wearing them for boxing, and he didn't like how they fit. He wore them once and they're like in perfect condition. I've been trying to sell this shoe forever. But it just kind of sits in the closet. I saw they're at my parents' house. I saw them when I went home for Christmas, still just sitting there in the closet, perfectly pristine. And I'm like, at some point, somebody will want to buy this shoe. So if somebody is watching this and wants to buy the shoe, hit me up. I got them.
Yeah, they're about
But yeah,
$500 on eBay right now.
yeah, they're just sitting. They're
That's
just sitting
wild.
right now. Um, but yeah, I have that pair of shoes. And when he like I said, he had no idea what he had, and he was like, "Yeah, I'll like definitely send them to you." And he sent them, and you know, $25 later with shipping, I had a pretty pristine pair of wrestling shoes that I could not
Fuck for
wear
that kind of
whatsoever.
man.
Yeah. Yeah, I was pretty surprised about it too, but some people just don't know what they have. But yeah, I have that pair of shoes and
That's
probably
incredible.
never, like I said, unless somebody buys them, I'll never get rid of them probably. All right. I think we've talked about shoes enough. Let's get back to the wrestling to wrap this up. Um, what duels, and let's go to the ACC with Robbie. What duels from last week were really good, and or maybe matches that were really good? And then what are you looking forward to this weekend?
Last week I didn't watch the Iowa Penn State duel live because I was watching UVA Virginia Tech, but the NC State UNC match was also at the same time. It was
Yeah, I was
just
paying
a
attention to that. That was
fantastic duel.
yeah.
Um, Rivalry duels are always fun. And both of the rivalry duels on Friday were ones that have been kind of lopsided, with Virginia Tech winning, I think, the last 12, NC State's won the last 11 or 12. So it's been really in favor of one team or the other. Virginia Tech kind of kept that going. It was 36-3, I think. Not a good showing for the Hoos. But UNC, they have a scrappy dual team. I mean, they beat Virginia Tech and they have figured out whatever it takes to kind of stick close in these matches that a lot of people would think they would be written off in, and keep these duels really really close. And after the first week of duels, after that big upset, I kind of said I think there's a real possibility that we have multiple upsets in the ACC this year, and we have co-champs because the ACC is all just based off a record. So it doesn't matter if three teams have one loss, all three teams are conference dual champions, whether it
Hmm.
doesn't matter who beat who. Um, and I think there's a real chance for that. And NC State showed that they were vulnerable to a team that on paper shouldn't have been super competitive with them. And they still got Stanford, they've still got Virginia Tech coming up. So they've got two tough duels coming up still. This weekend will be a really good one. Virginia Tech travels out to Palo Alto for Stanford. I think that'll be kind of the highlight duel. Um, that one is super late. It's like 7 o'clock California time, so 10 o'clock Eastern time. So you can watch the other ones. Duke is at UVA. They're honoring the 2010, 2011, and 2015 ACC championship teams there. So that'll be kind of cool to see some of those guys that were around then coming back to be honored. Um, those are the big ones to keep an eye on. I think there's some really really good matchups in the Virginia Tech Stanford match. Jay Navis and Caleb Henson really kind of stands out. But Henson was back this week and dominated. Andy Smith was back this week and looked good. So Virginia Tech is kind of rounded back into shape. Lennox Wolak did not wrestle this weekend, so we'll see what kind of happens with him. TJ Stewart looked really good. So I don't know. Everybody's kind of rounded back into shape at the right time to make a run at the end of the season. So it's going to be super competitive for the next few weeks, and it's going to be interesting to see what it comes down to in the final week.
For sure. Austin, what's happening with the smart guys?
Smack
Smart
guys.
guys, Ivies. They were be more specific because EIWA is pretty smart too.
You cover all of them.
I do. Yeah, I'll start EIWA. Lehigh and Army wrestled this week. They're probably the marquee matchup, two nationally ranked teams. Lehigh, I thought that was going to be a good match. Lehigh came away winning 7 of 10 bouts. So they kind of put a beat down there on Army. They are pretty much healthy, minus Ryan Crookham, who was on the bench, not wearing any braces, any casts, any slings on his elbow. So he's
Hmm.
still training to come back for the year.
You're saying there's a chance.
I think the chances grow every week, just the way I've heard that from their camp that he's just getting better every week and he may be back. There's a very good chance. We talked, someone mentioned it, Bryce Cresho of FNM, 30th win on the year. I think
That's
he's
wild.
I think he's 30-12 on the year, so he's a lot of mileage under his belt. Shout out
Hell
Bucknell's,
yeah.
yeah,
There's full
Kurt
teams that
Phipps.
don't have 42 matches total.
Dude, it's crazy. Yeah. They have a lot of duels. A lot of opens they were in. Bucknell, Kurt Phipps, 100th win, came over Anthony Noto of Lock Haven. I feel like 100 wins is still a big feat. especially guys wrestling 20 matches a year. You know, you
Mhm.
just don't get that anymore. And then coming up this week, EIWA main matchup is probably Lehigh Bucknell. Is going to be a good one. Um, yeah, not much going on EIWA. Ivies last week, Penn was 2-0, looked dominant. Cornell was 2-0, was dominant. Princeton was 3-0. And Mark Anthony McGowan was a beast. 3 tech falls on the weekend. So he's just kind of coming into form, looking really good as of late. And the biggest duel for the Ivies next week is going to be Penn at Cornell, potentially tops in the Ivy League battle, Ivy League standings this year. So that'll be a good one. That's on Sunday, 1 p.m. up at Cornell.
Nice. Kevin, take it away with Big Ten.
Yeah, well, I also wanted to shout out Princeton. They shut out Harvard in that. Like I tweeted something about like future, world leaders or whatever, and then one team won all the matches. So
Yeah.
anyway,
Got shut out by Penn a few
Sounds
hours
like a
before that. So
dictatorship.
rough weekend
oh,
for Harvard.
that is tough. That is tough.
It's exam week. Cut them a break.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they'll be
fair
back.
enough.
It's always
You guys
exam week
banged
in
up.
Ivy League.
Well, I think that's what made it more impressive was that I know Harvard's good. Like they're a legit squad, and
Yeah, they got
shutouts happen.
a few guys deferring this year, but yeah, they're a little banged up too.
Yeah. So obviously, uh, Michigan lost to Ohio State last weekend. Ohio State's guys looked really good. I mean, they took 6 of the 10 matches, 4 bonus points, so that was pretty legit. Coming up for this weekend, though, I'm excited for Friday night, just across the board. First of all, the youth team I coach, we actually have a bye this week in our duels, which is usually on Friday night. So I happen to be available when we get Michigan and where is the calendar? There it is. Michigan and Penn State at 6 p.m. Eastern, followed by Nebraska at Iowa at 8 p.m. Eastern, followed by Purdue at Wisconsin at 10 p.m. Eastern. My wife is going to be so mad that the first Friday I have available, I'm going to spend 6 hours straight watching wrestling. I got to tell her this is coming up. So that's fun.
Nah, don't tell her. Let it be fun for all of us.
Yeah.
Let it happen organically.
Yeah. Is it almost over? Well, we got 3 more matches in this duel and then 20 more in the next 2 duels. So yeah, I mean that's it. That's all I've got really that I'm looking at. There is one that is on Gophers and Ohio State are wrestling this weekend at some point. That's going to be on Big Ten Plus. That's also going to be a pretty good matchup. Just Gophers have guys ranked at every single weight, and Ohio State is pretty loaded as well. So a lot of fun ones there, and we'll get to see if Gable can pin another top 10 guy this time with Feldman. Although Feldman might have dropped out. Is he? Let's find out.
Feldman's having a little tough
9
time right now, huh?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, tough stretch for the big guy.
Tough stretch. Yeah. Penn State obviously gonna do Penn State things, but it's gonna be fun to see a couple of partners wrestle when Penn State goes to Maryland. You get Neville's versus Kirkfleet. I know that's still very far between, but always fun when guys that are really familiar with each other match up. Kind of like we had Lemley wrestling Mendez last week.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty cool to see guys that grew up with each other wrestling. So that was pretty cool. And then I do want to give a shout out to my alma mater. I am wearing another Wilkes shirt, but shout out to them. At the end of January, Coach Laudenschlager got his 300th win, and then it was followed up by 2 of his guys getting their 100th win in duels. I think to start out February. So
Nice.
those guys have been doing really good, and I also think it's his birthday today as we're recording this. But yeah, shout out to my alma mater. They're doing really cool things. This is actually their first Wilkes women's wrestling t-shirt that I'm wearing right now. It says grow women's wrestling on the back. So, but yeah, that's my shout out. That's what I'm looking forward to is keeping in touch with my Wilkes friends, and staying on top of all the things that they're doing as a very happy Division III athlete that I was. And, but yeah, they're doing cool things, and it's always awesome to see your alma mater succeed. So it was really cool to see that. But yeah, I mean, outside of Want to see some teammates wrestle. Obviously, things in the Big Ten are always cool, and the ACC. I was very kind of like shocked to see UNC lose that duel to NC State. Like it was very close, but my guy Trumbull got the fall. As I've trying to tell you guys, you better
Did you
get
see
on the
his new
Trumbull
warm
train
up singlet?
now. You better
He's
get
got a new
on.
warm up singlet. It's pretty awesome.
The all
Yeah,
black one? Or is
did
that
I
the
see
old
that
one?
they were wearing a new singlet? That NC
No,
State was wearing a new singlet though?
so I don't believe they were.
Maybe not
That's when
last week. Maybe like a week before. I thought NC State was wearing a new singlet that I hadn't seen before. When you
they had
said
new
singlet,
warm
it,
ups.
it reminded me that they may have had a singlet on that I maybe it wasn't new and I just like hadn't seen it or whatever else. But yeah.
No, so I noticed it when NC State was down here in Charlottesville. I went to the duel, and Trumbull was wearing like a middle school old boxy brute blank singlet to warm up in, and I thought it was hilarious.
Was it
And
the
he switched
burlap
it up.
sack material or was it still like
Yeah, it was like the thick lycra, like the
oh
no, not the old polyester, but it was the it was pretty funny. And he
make
had
you
a
itchy
different
just
one on
looking
this
at
week,
it?
so it's yeah, it was quality. No, I mean NC State is or North Carolina has really wrestled incredibly well in the duels they've had so far in the ACC, and they even though they kind of have some holes in their lineup where you're not expecting guys to pick up big wins, they're keeping them close and they're minimizing bonus points against them, which has been kind of key for their wins.
For sure, for sure. Yeah, I mean that duel was pretty wild. I was just like, I was watching Penn State and Iowa, but like every once in a while, kind of like glance over and like check results or check something else, and check to see if there was like a highlight clip or something else posted, and I was like, there's no way that like just don't get pinned. That's the only thing you got to do. Like just don't get pinned, and he went out there and got pinned. And I was like, oh man, it's 16-16 right now. This is be an epic comeback. So yeah.
Now you're not wrong about that singlet. It's not new because it's a throwback to like the Darian Caldwell singlets, but it's new that they haven't worn that one in several years, that design.
Okay. Yeah.
But that's the same design that Caldwell won his title in.
The old backflip fail special.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Um, by the way, those guys at Wilkes that got their 100th win were Butka and Burkhart, really good wrestlers and deserve to get some praise, obviously. And yeah, I'm going to use my platform to do it. I got the mic, so I'll say what the hell I want. So yeah,
Fair.
shout out to them. Always awesome to, like I said, see my alma mater doing some really cool things, and love seeing these guys win and continuing to do really cool things. But gentlemen, any other closing thoughts? Any other movie quotes that you want to throw out there? Or should we wrap things up and get on to the next week?
Your name is going to be Julia Gulia?
Thank you. And
We'll
that's how
stick
we
with
will
it.
close things out. Thanks to Kevin with a Julia Gulia little movie quote.
I love it.
But no, love it as always. Fun chopping up with you guys, talking wrestling. Guys, keep the comments coming every single week. We have more people commenting, whether we mess up on something or you want to add to the conversation. Would love to see wrestling shoe talk. I'm sure Kevin will engage with all of it when he sees it. But yeah, keep that stuff coming and give us your thoughts on the Bassett commitment, your favorite wrestling shoes. If you want to give shout outs, maybe we'll throw them here on the show and throw them up here too. But no, it's always
Shout
good.
out to warm up singlets.
Shout out to warm up singlets, the burlap sack looking ones. But no, always fun. And we'll see you guys again next week.